Hi everyone, my name's Nathalie McLean. We're just about to have a Q&A with Stephen Oliver and Stephen McGregor about their film Looky Looky, Here Comes Cooky. Hi guys.
Howdy.
Hi Natalie.
Thank you so much for coming on and having this time with me. I'm really excited to talk about your film and how you decided to both collaborate on this. So can you tell me a little bit about what inspired you both to collaborate on this film?
Well, the film had a long gestation. We wanted to mark the 250th celebration, Australia's celebration of Cook discovering Australia, and we felt it important to have an Indigenous voice looking at that. And we thought, who can that other voice be to assist us in telling that story? And of course, Stephen Oliver shimmied into frame, and there he is. So, but seriously, we really love Stephen Oliver's take on things and the way he looks at the world, and he has a really insightful political point of view, and we felt we could get beneath people's skin, teach them a lesson, but also get them to laugh.
That was sweet of you. Very sweet. Make no shame. Yeah, no. Well, I'm very flattered and honored that the guys asked me to be a part of this. Because I'd never ever worked on a doco before. I'd never written one, let alone presented one. So the faith in me was very humbling, and I was a bit tentative at first because I wasn't sure how I'd go. But the guys were very supportive, very nurturing. They let me be Wamba, like simple all the way through, but still be that serious stuff and that bring it to the film and stuff. And so yeah, they asked me, and then I saw that paycheck, man. But I thought, get out of your comfort zone, because I'd only ever, written sketch comedy or plays or poetry. I've never ever written a doco before. So I thought it was a good opportunity for me as well. And I'm very, very glad and very proud of the film. And yeah, glad that I said yes.
It's no surprise to me that us blackfellas are really good at code switching. And something that stood out to me in the film was your narration, Stephen, filled with classic blackfella humour and language. I want to know, did that come naturally to you, or was that very intentional for the film?
No, it was natural, and I think that's what when I talk about the guys allowing me to be who I am in the writing, the way I presented things. But that being said, I think because Stephen's from up North Lake Darwin way, NT way. And I think we have a very similar humour. Like I'll even after our first week together, where we kind of had a creative writing session in Sydney, when he dropped me off at the airport, I actually said to him, I don't think I've ever had so much in my life. Like, how if we say something stupid and we make a joke and then go, and what was it, 4 days? I think I said it that many times, and I don't think I've ever done that so many times in my life. But I think that helped a lot too, to know that we kind of had that same way of how we go about things. So yeah, no, it was deadly.
You worked with a number of incredibly talented musicians, composers and producers on this film. How was that experience for both of you?
It was a fantastic experience. I think we had great creatives, we had great songwriters to be part of the storytelling process, and I think the songline aspect of it was something none of us had ever done before, but we felt it was a way to tell this story and bring a new voice to it and allow a young voice to come through, like a lot of these artists, like Birds and Trials and Alice and all that. They're all up-and-coming artists, but they have a strong political voice, or they can sing. And we felt that was a unique way to get this story across rather than telling it through a dry and academic way. And they were very giving and very supportive, and we had a ball, basically. We got to travel around Australia and sing songs.
And I think, I think that was the brilliant of, with using music in it as well, because if you look at us, like with us blackfellas, we're very connected to our music in the sense of we use songs to teach us about law, about country. Like songs are a very important thing to us. We have, songlines, that's what maps the country, or that's our creation stories. If you're going to sing someone to fall in love with you, you sing them, or you know what I mean? Like everything kind of revolves around sing and song. So, I just think that was a credit to the guys as well, to kind of have that insight to do that. But to get the opportunity, I had a moment where I'm sitting with Uncle Kev Carmody, and to work with all the guys was phenomenal, you know what I mean? But I had this moment because when we were flying to one location, I was listening to Uncle Archie Roach on the plane, and it was him singing with the Australian Symphony Orchestra, I believe it was, at the Opera House. And I was listening to this album of him doing songs with them. And a week later, here I am sitting with Uncle Kev Carmody, who's telling me the story about when Archie Roach first walked into the house at the block and showed them that song, took the children away, and they recorded it on a tape, and then they went into Cooky Radio, and Cooky Radio was playing it next day. Do you know what I mean? So I'm listening to that on my way I'm flying, and then I'm hearing the story from Uncle Kev about that, that wonderful story. And that's when I just kind of realized how blessed I am to do what I do and to meet the people I do. And to get to see the places I do. If that's one thing, looking at the documentary, because it's so gorgeous, credit to the guys and Murray Louie and, and the team and stuff like that as well. And then, McGregor, I looked at that film and I thought, gee, I'm lucky to get to go to the places I do. I'm very blessed. So, well, it was very, very, very moving for me.
Beautiful. It's absolutely stunning, the locations that you get to visit throughout the film. How long were you filming this? How long did it take to travel to all of those places?
We had 3 blocks of filming. I think they were 3 weeks each. And we had a third block of filming that we weren't able to do due to the lockdowns up, around Australia. So we just snuck in by the skin of our teeth, basically. I mean, it was unfortunate that we couldn't get up to the Torres Strait and North Queensland a bit further, and that was the block we missed out on. But all up, we shot for about 6 weeks, I think, and Murray Louie, who's a Torres Strait Islander, he was the DOP along with another fella called Luke Marriott. And, basically they made that country sing.
You embraced this concept of the modern day songline throughout the film. How did you come up with this concept?
I mean, we had a long process of developing this film. One of the producers, Nathalie McLean and Anna Greaves, were heavily involved in the development stage. And it was all about telling a story through art. I mean, at one stage there was poetry was going to be explored, paintings were going to be explored, but then we landed on songlines. And that's sort of something that connects everyone. Songline will take you to a certain border of someone's country, and then that songline's passed on to someone else. So that story travels everywhere. So it's sort of, when we landed on that idea, it was well, that seemed a pretty apt, line to take. I don't know, Stephen, what do you reckon?
It's fun, music. I was just reminded of a story, but music is for me. I'm having this very a deep relationship with music at the moment. In this, it'll be too long if I try and explain it all. But I don't know if you've heard about a thing called string theory, like they have in quantum mechanics and all that kind of stuff. But they talk about the quantum energy field. It produces quarks make particles makes atoms make matter makes us. We're all made up of matter. Chairs, tables, everything is made of matter. But they talk about string theory in the sense that it's vibrations that create these quarks and particles and stuff. And so for me, when I hear that, I hear about that's things being sung into existence. Which is something we've always talked about with our mob. And so I'm seeing all these connections in between music and what people talk about, with quantum mechanics and stuff like that, and the way we look at the world and our spirituality and stuff like that. So yeah, I was going off on a tangent then. Where was I going with that? My relation with and that's the story I was going to tell. So while we were filming, I'll never forget this, but we went to the Captain Cook Hotel on Australia Day, and I walk into the Captain Cook Hotel. What song is playing on the TV at that very moment? Solid Rock. I took that as a sign of this is our mob going. Use mob. You're doing the right thing. You're walking the right path here, or you're dancing to the right tune. You're shaking your money. But it was that thing, and that's why I think about music is, because even when you look at when people talk about God and they say God is within all of us, well, music is within all of us. When they talk about God carries you through the hard times, we listen to music, to help us through stuff, to deal with stuff. When we lose someone, we listen, we play their favorite song at their funeral. You know what I mean? And when blackfellas, when we used to, and I was thinking about this the other day, it's quite sad how with music, we use it to say goodbye to people in the world. but we no longer have music to welcome people into the world. And we used to do that with our ceremony, and we used to have naming ceremonies and stuff like that. And so we've kind of lost this thing with music, this kind of deepness, this deeper connection that music exists within all of us, and what is our relationship to music. And we're kind of, I think in a lot of the ways, like, because of the way music gets a lot used today and who's in control of music and all that kind of stuff, we've kind of lost this connection and sacredness of it. You know, that, and that's what I love about this film, is that we kind of talk about a deeper meaning to music, and what is it we want to say when we make music, and what is music really for? What is it we're using it for? And that's what I love about this film.
The fact that you went into a film that was about something that was so colonised, a concept so colonised, and then you came out of it bringing this idea forward about songlines and modern day songlines, just beautiful. Something I hear a lot of non-Indigenous people say is that they wish they had learnt more at school about our history. Now that you've presented these facts, how do you think it will be received?
I think in certain quarters of the Australian community, it's probably not going to be received very favourably. You know, I think people are going to say you can't put that stuff out because that's not what it says in the history books. But we're telling our history. So we hope, we're not having a go at people, we're asking people to walk with us. You know, and I think if the film is accepted that way, I think it'll go a long way to opening up people's eyes and people's hearts. But I'm pretty sure there's going to be a certain section of the community that's going to give it a good old flogging.
We're not telling people what to think. Whereas usually when you go through school, you're told what to think. This is what happened. We're not telling people, you got to think this. We're telling people to think about it, to challenge that own thing, to go, you know, we're saying history. There's a saying I love, whereas if you look at truth is never a single truth. If you want the truth, you need to go into each part of something that talks about a subject, and you take bits out of that, and somewhere in there is the truth. And so that's what, you know, we're trying to say. And then even there's a part in the film where I talk about our histories. They're essentially complementary to each other. You know, people are going, there's this one history. To say, well, there's not this one history. You know, like when you watch the show like Australia, The Story of Us, I remember there was something like about 7 or 8 episodes. And it's interesting how the first episode was kind of devoted to Aboriginal people, but the rest of the episodes, like 7, were about all the colonising of Australia. And I always find it interesting how 80, 70, 60, 80, 100, you know, whatever thousands of years it is, we get that one episode, yet 200 years we'll get 7. And so, you know, that's what we're saying to these people, is that you've been told it's this one history all this time, but there is another history out there. And look into that deeper history. And, you know, don't feel threatened by that. I said, you know, normally people, if they're going to attack it, it's because they feel threatened about something. Oh, you're trying to take something away from me. You're trying to rob me of this. Even though we're told constantly to assimilate, you know what I mean? You got to give up this. You can't do that. You got to, this is how it's done. So then when people do that, you know, I find they come from a very fragile place. And like that, the identity, if they're feeling the identity is going to crumble because someone is questioning something, and they can't give an answer to that in a way that is solidified, you know, that's why people react in a certain way. But, you know, they need to understand, look, we're not trying to rob you of anything, but we are asking you to think about something. And don't just think that there's one way to think about the world. That's another thing I love about the film. We're not telling people what to think. We're showing, you know, just think about it, but we're also showing how we think and how we see the world. And that's the thing of songlines and the way we see the country, the way we map, the way we sing the land. You know, that's all about how we think. And people should delve into that because it is a beautiful thing, you know what I mean? And I think that's why people are kind of wanting to learn that now. I wish they learned more about it, because I think people are feeling there is this kind of hollowness and they're wanting to get to a deeper place about that. And, you know, and I love that, you know, and that being said, don't expect every Aboriginal person to be your encyclopedia as well. You know what I mean? Watch docos, you got the internet, you know, like, and don't always assume, but learn. And, you know, if everyone learns, the world's going to be a richer place for it.
At the beginning of the film, you asked, does Australia have a blurred vision of Cook? Was that an easy question to answer?
I think so. I think it is a blurred vision. I think it's, you know, it's looked at in this one way, it's portrayed, and people only want to know one part of it. They don't want to know anything else.
So in your in your search for that answer, did you come across anything interesting? Did you come across, I mean, I know that there's going to be a lot of, we talked about it before, white Australia, maybe they're not going to be so pleased with some of the information that they hear in this film. Did you come across any adversities, anything strange while you were asking these questions?
No, not really. I don't think so. I mean, the fact that Australia has a blurred history of Cook, it also sort of, I mean, there's this, you know, it's always mentioned this line that Cook, and we talk about it in the film, that Cook discovered Australia. Like Fred Leone says, it's like Cook sung it into existence, like this place didn't even exist until Cook turned up. So I think that sort of leans to the phrase of a blurred history of Cook. This Cook is the be all and end all. So we're just sort of, I mean, there's that other saying, history is written by the victors. We're sort of reclaiming that narrative.
And I think too, what happens sometimes is that because of what we're shown in media, we're kind of think that's what we're going to get a lot of the time, if that makes sense. So, you know, I think one of the phrases used in one of the reports we use is like culture war. You know, there's going to be a culture war. Like that's a very strong word, war. But you know, that's a whole other thing that I could go down. But you know, in that sense, I think at the end of the day, like I was thinking today, like I get tired of people always promoting racists as being bogan people, because I've got a lot of bogan mates, and I can sit and talk to them about blackfella things, and they'll agree with, you know what I mean? And it's not bogans who are making decisions or stuff like that, or policies that affect us as Aboriginal people, or making the laws and telling us what to think. You know what I mean? And so I think sometimes that's where we kind of get caught up, because we've got people who are making these decisions telling us that this is how it's got to be and this is what we've got to accept. But when you go out into the world and you actually just talk to people, you know, like, yes, there are horrible people out there. That's not going to be, you know, I'm not going to deny that. But generally, it's like after black comedy, you know, I had this thing of going, I knew I was going to be coming out to hundreds of thousands of people. Now, from everything I've ever seen, I thought I was going to be opening myself up to a lot of homophobic stuff. And if anything, people have been just so welcoming and beautiful. And you know what I mean? Like, it's been the opposite of what I kind of thought, because I did have experience, but also because I was told this thing through media about my existence as a gay man didn't matter, and that was all through policies and that were being made. And I think that's the same thing that can kind of happen, you know, with when we have these discussions. But yeah, it's a long road, but like I always say, it's not going to be an easy road, but it's easier if we walk it together.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've certainly started such a big conversation by doing this, by creating a documentary that I guess creates more conversation.
Well, that's a good thing, I think. You know, as long as we can start that conversation and be a part of that conversation.
Exactly. And letting us talk about our truth.
Yeah, let's talk about truth for a minute. Possession Island, something I learnt in this film was about Captain Cook placing this little rag flag on Possession Island and claiming it. But what I learned was that actually he didn't touch that land. So if the rest of Australia thinks that that's the truth, and then you've presented this information that says that that's not the truth, that's completely false, the whole idea of Possession Island is false. And we're believing a false narrative. How do you feel about Australians who believe in this notion of Possession Island and Terra Nullius, that it's the truth?
I think people have been fed something for so long, and people have been conditioned how to think as well. Like, people don't even question things anymore. And I think that's the one thing we need to do most, is question all the time. And people don't like being questioned. I think we're seeing that a lot more now, that when you question that kind of authority, and if you're out of order, you know, like, it's, you know, what did Martin Luther King say? Something about he doesn't fear, but it wasn't about justice, but it had to do with order. Like, things aren't about justice anymore, it's about order. And I think that's why people are fed a lot of the time and they're told what to think in a way, because it's to keep order about things, so there isn't disarray around it. You know what I mean? It's like even when you look at the protest with the Black Lives Matter the other day, and the kind of people, you know, were being upset because 30,000 people, you know, I think was here in Brisbane who'd marched, And people were upset because 30,000 people can march, but I can't go and have a coffee. And it's kind of like, wow, you're upset over not having a coffee, and we're protesting over someone's life. Not just a person's life, but people's lives. Hundreds, thousands of people's lives. Millions even, when you look at genocide. And we're reminding people that you don't have to sit back and just take things all the time. It's your right as a human being. It is your human right. And so when people kind of want to, I think people are just kind of conditioned to act. It's like road rage. I look at road rage and I go, what are people really angry about? You know what I mean? Like that reaction isn't normal. Like it's not, we're making it normal now because it's happening a lot, but what is it people are really angry at? So yeah, I think when people just kind of blindly accept, and we're taught not to question things. You know what I mean? So yeah, to those people, I want them to remember that just don't always accept what you've been told. Question it. And, that's even saying, and that applies like, the document, they don't have to accept what we say in this documentary as just simple fact, because it's okay to question us. But the thing is, at least we're questioning and we're talking and we're having that conversation. Let's have that conversation instead of just going, this is it, this is what you're going to think, and this is how it's going to be.
How do you feel about this film now on completion? It's out to the world. How do you feel?
I feel very proud of this film, and I think everybody who helped make this film. I mean, there were a lot of people involved in the making of this film, and they own this film as much as everyone who's a part of it. So, and really curious to see how it's accepted. I mean, it's really scary because it hasn't had an audience yet. So that's, I mean, it's a pity we can't sit in the cinema and watch it with the first audience, because that's the most thrilling and most scary thing ever, to be with that first audience. So very excited and proud of it.
Yeah, no, I'm the same. I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of being asked, of being proud of the people I've worked with, everyone's what they put into this. And I think that's, at the end of the day, it's like whenever I write a play or something like that. And I think this is what the world needs to remember at large, is that, when we make things like this, it's all about our connection to each other. Everyone has a role to play. And, everyone, yeah, like I said, I really am humbled that I was asked to be part of this project. And I think what sums it up for me best is that I showed one of my elders, and I'll probably get upset when I say this, but she said, at the end of it, she said, your elders will be singing your praises. And so that was very, lovely. So yeah, no, that was, yeah. And to hear that from your elders, you know what I mean? Like, because at the end of the day, I think that's what these films are for. It's not like we're just trying to make a better world for our kids. We're also trying to honor those who have come before us, and all the suffering and all the hurt and all the pain they've gone through. You know what I mean? And I think, and I think this film is a perfect example of, like, not only do we stand on shoulders, but we lean on them too. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for being on the Q&A with me today and talking about your film, Looky Looky, Here Comes Cooky. I'm so excited for you, and thank you again for being a part of the Melbourne International Film Festival.
Cool, thanks for having us.
Thanks, Smith.